There exists a particular kind of silence that lives inside certain people. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of carrying weight alone. It is the silence of those who have learned, somewhere along the way, that asking for help is not an option their hearts can afford. They move through the world with a kind of quiet strength that others admire, never knowing that beneath that strength lies something far more complex than resilience. It is a fortress built brick by brick, year after year, from moments when reaching out felt more dangerous than enduring alone. These are not people who lack needs, they feel everything. The exhaustion, the overwhelm, the moments when the burden becomes almost unbearable. But somewhere deep in their psychology, a belief took root and grew into something unshakable, that needing others is a weakness they cannot allow themselves. That vulnerability is a door they learned to lock from the inside, throwing away the key before they could change their minds. The origin of this pattern rarely announces itself clearly. It begins quietly, often in childhood, when a small hand reached out and found nothing there to hold. Perhaps it was a parent too burdened by their own struggles to notice. Perhaps it was a moment of need met with impatience, or worse, with disappointment. Children learn quickly. They learn that the world rewards certain behaviors and punishes others. And when asking for help brings shame instead of comfort, when it makes them feel like a burden rather than someone worthy of care, they learn to stop asking. They learn to become small in their needs, to shrink their requests until they disappear entirely. But it is not always about absence. Sometimes it is about presence, the wrong kind. Some people learn not to ask for help because when they did, it came with conditions. It came with guilt, with favors owed, with the heavy weight of obligation that made the help feel more costly than the struggle. They learned that every request had a price, and that price was their independence, their autonomy, their right to exist without debt. So they chose to carry everything themselves, to preserve the one thing that felt truly theirs, their self-reliance. There's also the kind of learning that comes from witnessing. From watching someone they loved break under the weight of asking, of needing, of depending on others who eventually left or let them down. The lesson became clear without words. Relying on others is dangerous. People leave, people disappoint, people use your needs against you. Better to never give anyone that power. Better to become the kind of person who needs nothing from no one. And so a psychology is formed, a way of being that feels like strength but functions like armor. These individuals become experts at giving. They are often the ones others turn to, the reliable ones, the capable ones, the ones who always seem to have it together. They find meaning in being needed because it confirms what they believe about themselves, that their value lies in what they can do for others, not in what they might need themselves. To ask would be to admit that they are not as strong as everyone believes, and if they are not strong, then who are they? This pattern creates a particular kind of loneliness. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people who care but who never truly see the struggle, because the struggle is hidden so well. It is the loneliness of connection without depth, of relationships that exist on the surface where everything looks fine, while underneath the current pulls stronger every day. Others may sense something, may offer help, but the offer is declined so smoothly, so convincingly, that they learn to stop offering. And the person who cannot ask is left more isolated than before, now carrying not just their own burdens but the confirmation that no one really notices, no one really sees. The psychology of never asking for help is often misunderstood as pride, but it is rarely that simple. Pride suggests an inflated sense of self, a belief in one's superiority. But those who cannot ask often struggle with the opposite. Beneath the facade of capability lies a deep-seated belief that they do not deserve help, that their needs are somehow less important than the needs of others, that to ask would be to impose, to burden, to take up space they have no right to occupy. It is not that they think they are better than others, it is that they have learned to think of themselves as less. This creates an exhausting cycle. The more they handle alone, the more capable they appear. The more capable they appear, the less others think to offer help. The less others offer, the more confirmed they feel in their belief that asking is pointless, that no one would help anyway, that they are fundamentally alone in their struggles. And so they continue, pushing through fatigue, through overwhelm, through moments when their body and mind scream for rest, for support. For someone to share the load. What others often fail to see is the cost of this independence. It shows up in subtle ways, in the tension that never fully releases from their shoulders, in the way they say yes to everything because saying no would mean admitting they have limits, in the moments when they disappear, withdrawing not out of anger but out of sheer depletion, needing to collapse in private where no one can see. The cost accumulates like interest on a debt that can never be fully paid, growing heavier with each passing year. There's also a relationship between never asking for help and control. When someone has experienced chaos, unpredictability, or the pain of depending on unreliable people, self-reliance becomes a way to create safety. If they do everything themselves, they control the outcome. If they need no one can let them down. The illusion of control becomes more comforting than the reality of interdependence, but control is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, constant effort, constant management of every detail, because to let go, to trust, to ask for help would mean surrendering the only thing that has kept them feeling safe. Some people who never ask for help have also learned to associate needing others with failure. In a world that glorifies independence and self-sufficiency, that celebrates those who pull themselves up by their bootstraps and make it on their own, needing help can feel like an admission of inadequacy. It can feel like evidence that they are not strong enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. And so they push harder, do more, achieve more, all while running on empty, trying to prove something that was never actually in question, their fundamental worth as a human being. The irony is that in refusing to ask for help, people often deny others the opportunity to care for them in meaningful ways. Relationships thrive on reciprocity, on the give and take that allows both people to feel valued. When someone only gives and never receives, they create an imbalance that can leave others feeling unnecessary, disconnected, even frustrated. People want to be needed. They want to feel that they matter to those they care about. But when someone is so determined to handle everything alone, it sends a quiet message: you are not needed here. And slowly, relationships can wither under the weight of that unspoken rejection. Yet beneath all of this, beneath the patterns and the defenses and the deeply ingrained beliefs, there often exists a longing. A longing to be seen, to be known, to be held in moments of weakness without judgment. A longing to experience what it might feel like to let someone in, to share the weight, to discover that asking for help does not lead to rejection or abandonment or the loss of self. But the longing is buried under layers of protection, under years of conditioning that taught them that such hopes are naive, dangerous, or simply not meant for them. The psychology of never asking for help is not fixed or permanent, but changing it requires more than simply deciding to ask. It requires dismantling beliefs that have become part of identity. It requires grieving the experiences that taught self-reliance as survival. It requires finding evidence, repeated, consistent evidence, that reaching out can lead to something other than disappointment. And that takes time, patience, and often the kind of support that does not wait to be asked for but shows up anyway, gently, persistently, until the walls begin to soften. There are moments when the weight becomes too much. When the body breaks down, when circumstances overwhelm even the most capable person, when continuing alone is simply no longer possible. These moments are terrifying for those who have built their entire identity around not needing help. They feel like failure, like the ultimate proof that they were not strong enough after all. But these moments can also be openings, cracks in the armor where light might finally get in. Where someone might discover that asking for help does not diminish them, that vulnerability is not the same as weakness, that interdependence is actually the more courageous choice. Some people never reach that point. They continue carrying everything alone until their bodies or minds force them to stop, until they collapse under weight that was never meant to be carried solo. And even then, they may resist, may try to minimize their needs, may apologize for finally, reluctantly accepting the help they should have been able to ask for all along. The pattern runs deep. It does not release its hold easily. But understanding this psychology, recognizing it in oneself or in others, is a beginning. It creates space for compassion rather than judgment. It reveals that the person who seems so strong, so capable, so unbothered by anything, may actually be struggling more than anyone realizes. It suggests that the offer of help should not be easily withdrawn when it is FI. RSD declined. Sometimes people need to be shown, again and again, that reaching out will not lead to the outcomes they fear. That there are people who will not exploit their needs, who will not make them feel small for asking, who will not leave them more alone than before. The psychology of people who never ask for help is ultimately about protection, about building walls so high that pain cannot get in, even though those same walls keep out everything else as well. It is about trading connection for safety, intimacy for control, vulnerability for the illusion of invulnerability. And while that trade may have made sense once, while it may have been necessary for survival in moments when asking truly was dangerous, it often outlives its usefulness. The walls that once protected begin to imprison. The strength that once saved becomes the thing that isolates. There is no simple answer, no easy fix. Change requires confronting fears that feel insurmountable. It requires risking the very things these individuals have spent their lives trying to avoid: rejection, disappointment, the confirmation that they are too much or not enough. But on the other side of that risk lies something they may have forgotten exists: the relief of shared burden, the warmth of genuine connection, the discovery that needing others does not erase the self but actually allows it to be more fully known. And so the question becomes not whether change is possible, but what makes it possible. What allows someone who has spent a lifetime carrying everything alone to finally set something down, to reach out a hand, to speak the words that have lived unspoken for so long? The answer is rarely dramatic. It is not usually a single moment of revelation or a sudden decision to be different. Instead, it is a slow thawing, a gradual softening that happens when safety is proven rather than promised. For some, change begins with exhaustion. Not the everyday tiredness that comes from a busy life, but the bone-deep depletion that arrives after years of pushing through, of ignoring limits, of functioning as though rest and help are luxuries rather than necessities. When the body finally refuses to continue, when illness or breakdown or sheer collapse makes independence impossible, a door opens. It is not a door anyone wanted to walk through, but sometimes it is the only door that leads out of the prison of self-reliance. And in that forced vulnerability, in that moment when asking for help becomes unavoidable, something unexpected can happen. The feared consequences do not materialize. The help that arrives does not come with the costs they anticipated, and a small crack appears in the belief system that has governed their life. But exhaustion alone is not always enough. Some people push through even that, finding reserves they did not know existed, doubling down on their independence rather than surrendering to their needs. For them, change often requires relationship. Not just any relationship, but the specific kind that persists without demanding, that offers without expecting, that sees through the performance of capability to the person underneath. These relationships are rare. They require patience that most people do not have, consistency that tests even the most caring hearts. But when they exist, they create conditions where asking for help begins to feel less terrifying. The process is delicate. These individuals have spent years perfecting the art of deflection, of changing subjects when conversations get too close to their struggles, of smiling through difficulty so convincingly that even those who love them believe everything is fine. They have learned to hide so well that being seen feels like being stripped naked in public. And so the relationships that eventually reach them must proceed with care, must understand that trust is not given but earned slowly, through countless small moments of showing up without agenda, without judgment, without the need for reciprocation. What these relationships teach is that vulnerability does not always lead to abandonment, that showing weakness does not automatically result in exploitation, that needing something from another person can actually deepen connection rather than destroy it. But this learning cannot be rushed. Each positive experience of asking and receiving must be filed away, must accumulate until it begins to outweigh the evidence collected over a lifetime that said asking was dangerous. And even then, even when the scales begin to tip, the old patterns do not disappear. They hover, ready to reassert themselves the moment something goes wrong, the moment help comes with strings attached or is withdrawn at a critical moment. There's also the internal work that must happen. The examining of beliefs that have operated below conscious awareness for so long they feel like truth rather than interpretation. Beliefs like, I am only valuable when I am useful. My needs are burdensome to others. Ask. Ing for help means I have failed. People will love me only as long as I do not inconvenience them. These thoughts have roots that run deep, fed by experiences that confirm them again and again. Uprooting them requires more than positive thinking or affirmations. It requires grieving the ways these beliefs have shaped a life, the opportunities for connection that were missed, the years spent alone in struggles that did not need to be solitary. Some people come to this work through therapy, through the careful guidance of someone trained to help dismantle destructive patterns and build healthier ones. Others find their way through crisis, through the undeniable evidence that the old way is no longer sustainable. Still others are led by curiosity, by a growing sense that there might be another way to live, even if they cannot quite imagine what that looks like. The path matters less than the willingness to walk it, to question what has always seemed unquestionable, to consider that the beliefs that once protected them might now be limiting them. But understanding intellectually that asking for help is not weakness does not automatically make it easier to do. The gap between knowing something and being able to act on it can feel vast. The first attempts are often clumsy, uncomfortable, loaded with shame that seems disproportionate to the act. Asking someone to help with something small, a ride, a listening ear, assistance with a task, can trigger waves of anxiety that suggest the stakes are far higher than they actually are. And if those first attempts go poorly, if the person responds with judgment or makes the asker feel foolish, it confirms every fear and can set the process back significantly. This is why the response matters so much. Those who love someone who struggles to ask for help must understand that when they finally do, it is not a casual moment. It is an act of profound courage, a risk taken against every instinct screaming not to. The response should honor that courage, should make the asking feel safe rather than shameful. Not by making a big deal of it, not by praising them excessively for doing something everyone else does naturally, but simply by helping without hesitation, without keeping score, without making them feel that they now owe something in return. Over time, with enough positive experiences, asking can begin to feel less like jumping off a cliff and more like opening a window. The fear does not disappear entirely, but it loses some of its power. The person begins to notice that the world does not end when they admit they need something. That people do not lose respect for them, do not see them as less capable, do not use their vulnerability against them. They begin to experience something they may have never known, the relief of shared burden, the lightness that comes when weight is distributed rather than concentrated in one person. Yet even as progress happens, setbacks are inevitable. There will be moments when old patterns reassert themselves, when asking feels impossible again, when the walls go back up seemingly overnight. Perhaps someone lets them down. Perhaps they ask for help and do not receive it, confirming the old fear that they are on their own after all. Perhaps they simply get overwhelmed by the vulnerability of it, by the discomfort of depending on others, and retreat back into the familiar territory of self-reliance. These setbacks do not erase progress, but they can feel devastating to someone who was just beginning to believe that change was possible. Compassion during these moments, both from others and from oneself, is crucial. The journey away from isolation and toward interdependence is not linear. It is marked by advances and retreats, brave steps forward and frightened steps back. Judging those retreats, treating them as failure, only reinforces the original pattern. But meeting them with understanding, with patience, with the reminder that learning new ways of being takes time, creates space for the person to try again when they are ready. There is something profound that happens when someone who has never asked for help finally allows themselves to be supported. It changes not just their relationship with themselves, but their relationships with others. People who previously felt held at arm's length suddenly have access to deeper connection. The person who is always giving finally allows the flow to move both ways. Relationships become more balanced, more authentic, more intimate. And the person discovers something they may not have believed possible, that being vulnerable, being honest about needs and struggles, actually makes them more lovable, not less. This discovery contradicts everything they were taught, everything they believed, everything they built their life around. And it can be disorienting, this realization that they were wrong about something so fundamental, that the weakness they feared would repel others actually draws them closer. Had the needs they tried so hard to hide were never as shameful as they believed. That people actually want to help, want to feel needed, want to be part of the difficult moments as well as the easy ones. But even with this knowledge, even with positive experiences accumulating, the pattern of self-reliance does not fully disappear. It becomes one option among others rather than the only option. There will still be times when asking feels too hard, when handling things alone feels safer. The difference is that now there is choice. The person is no longer trapped in the pattern, but can consciously decide when to reach out and when to handle something independently. They have flexibility where before there was only rigidity. Some people find that as they learn to ask for help with practical things, they also become able to ask for emotional support, that they can finally tell someone they are struggling, that they are scared, that they do not know what to do. These conversations are often the hardest, carrying more vulnerability than any request for physical assistance. But they are also often the most transformative, creating the kind of intimacy that only exists when people are willing to be truly seen in their uncertainty and pain. The ability to ask for help also changes how people experience their own strength. They realize that independence and interdependence are not opposites, that needing others does not negate their capability. That true strength includes knowing when to ask for support, when to admit that something is too much to carry alone. That the people they most admire are often those who are comfortable with both giving and receiving, who move fluidly between self-reliance and healthy dependence depending on what the situation requires. This realization can be both freeing and grief-inducing. Freeing because it opens up new possibilities, new ways of being in relationship, new experiences of connection. But also grief-inducing because it highlights all the years spent struggling alone when support was available, all the relationships that stayed surface level because vulnerability was too risky, all the moments of suffering that could have been shared and eased. That grief is valid and important. It deserves space and acknowledgement. It is part of the healing process, part of releasing the old way to make room for the new. There's no perfect ending to this story because it is not really a story but an ongoing process, a continuous practice of choosing connection over isolation, vulnerability over armor, asking over enduring. Some days will be easier than others. Some requests will flow naturally while others will require summoning every ounce of courage. But each time someone asks for help, each time they reach out instead of retreating inward, they are rewriting the script that was written for them long ago. They are proving to themselves that a different way is possible. And perhaps that is the deepest truth about the psychology of people who never ask for help, that it is not about weakness or strength, pride or humility, capability or lack thereof. It is about what we learn to believe about ourselves and others, about safety and risk, about what we deserve and what we are allowed to need. These beliefs can change. They do change slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And when they do, when someone finally learns that asking for help is not the end of their independence but the beginning of true connection, something shifts not just in them but in everyone around them. The walls come down, the burden is shared, and the loneliness that masqueraded as strength finally gives way to something more sustaining. The simple, powerful truth that we were never meant to carry everything alone.